Hello, everyone. My name is Brad Kossmann. I lead data science and analytics at Soft Acrylic. This is my teammate, Morgan DiPietro. Soft Acrylic is a marketing analytics consultancy. We help our friends in marketing organizations leverage their data and do sort of advanced digital marketing techniques with it. And today we want to tell you a story about a Gen AI solution we've been developing that covers a niche in the marketplace. And we think it's a success story about how to leverage Gen AI in a way that's nearly hallucination-free. It's very safe, and it's very, very powerful and saves a lot of time for, at least for marketers, and kind of share some of our insights about how that works and how we've been able to make that project a success. So just a little bit about us first. I mentioned that we're a marketing analytics consultancy. We actually have sort of three different pillars. We have a data engineering team that specializes in marketing data. There are some nuances to marketing data, and it's important to understand those. We have an analytics group that's where Morgan and I reside, doing everything from basic reporting work all the way up through cloud ML and AI. And then finally, we have a marketing technology group that helps kind of connect the first-party data, our clients' data, to the greater MarTech ecosystem and get the data activated, get audiences targeted. So one way that we like to think about ourselves is in terms of the data journey. So you can see here, we don't think the data journey ever ends. You kind of just collect new data, you have to normalize it, model it, and so forth, and you just kind of are in this infinite number of iterations on your data journey. We support our clients throughout that entire journey. The solution that we want to talk about today sits near the end of that journey, where you're actually trying to define audiences for marketing. So I don't know if you all work much with marketers, but there are two large data science and analytics pillars to marketing. One is audience and the other is attribution. Today we're going to be talking about audience and having how you can find data-driven audience segments that are well suited for marketing campaigns. So for decades now, companies have been collecting tons of customer data, transactional data, digital data, marketing data, and compiling it all in enterprise data warehouses. And it's been well known and well understood that data is extremely powerful from a marketing perspective because it theoretically allows you to get close to this holy grail of marketing, of one-to-one marketing, finding the right message to send to any individual at the right time. That's more complicated than it might sound, though, because these are huge data sets. They're not super clean. Everybody knows that data is never perfectly clean. And then the connections into the activation channels where you can actually target customers, those are all very complicated as well. So there's sort of a disconnect between knowing that we have all this data, all this super powerful data, super valuable, and actually being able to execute on that. So that's what we want to walk through today. Basically a Gen AI-powered solution that helps bridge that gap and accelerate time to market for marketing campaigns. This is a wireframe of our UI. What you'll see in a moment is a little bit different from this. This product is very much in the early phases of the development cycle. But I do want to walk you through a few things that Morgan's going to be demonstrating in a moment about how all this works. So number one, loading a customer data set. So in this case, again, you can think of this in terms of your transactional data, your digital data, marketing data, demographics, whatever you might have access to. Number two, just push button ML segmentation. We've developed sort of a proprietary auto ML on the back end of this. Again, you want data-driven audience segments. There's all kinds of traditional heuristic bases for forming audiences, but we like to let the data speak for itself. So we prefer unsupervised learning for this so that we don't induce any of our own biases into the modeling. Once the segmentation runs, the outputs of that segmentation are fed into an LLM, and the LLM ingests those and is able to then interact with you freely about strategizing, persona identification, and other things that are absolutely essential to the marketing strategy lifecycle. Persona identification, I mentioned this a moment ago. So the outputs of the segments are just sets of descriptive statistics for each segment. That is useful in a sense, but it's very difficult for marketing purposes. You need something that's more like shorthand. So actually being able to identify a persona that fits within each of those clusters, that is where we actually see the Gen AI shine, because it is able to ingest what to a human being would be kind of an overwhelming number of cells in a heat map or a spreadsheet, and then boil them down to kind of very sensible bite-sized snippets of information, human-readable information, regarding the characteristics of each customer segment. The LLM is actually extremely good at strategy as well. We'll be demonstrating some of those purposes in a moment, because it has ingested this data and it's able to synthesize thoughts from this data in ways that humans would find difficult. Again, these are typically hundreds and hundreds of numbers that just exist in a heat map because they're descriptive statistics. It's very difficult to identify exactly what those mean in terms of human characteristics and personalities that are associated with the clusters, and then to leverage all of that information into a marketing strategy. And then finally, exporting and activating the addressable audience. This is a super important point. Because this comes from first-party data largely, you have actual customer identifiers stitched into the data set automatically. So once you have a segment named, and let's say the segment is somebody that you want to target with messaging, that segment is actually comprised entirely of real customers. That's an addressable audience. You can push that into a marketing platform and target them directly. You can build lookalike audiences on it, what have you. It's a very accurate way to market. It's a great way to get more efficiency out of your marketing budget, and so on. Morgan, you want to do a demo?
Yep. Great. How's it going today? It looks like everyone's working on some really cool projects, and we are excited to show you Audience Match. So let's jump right in. Okay, so we have had Audience Match summarize our audience segments, run our clustering, and summarize our audience segments. Let's just take a look. Let's get acquainted with the UI really quick. So on the left here, we will have our kind of segment definitions and descriptions. So let's look at segment 0 here. Those are the young, budget-conscious regulars. The cluster represents younger male customers who make smaller purchases but have a high frequency of transactions every 3 months. And then we have some information about those customers here. Same thing for our other segments. So the affluent mid-agers, this represents older male customers who make large purchases quarterly. Average age, 56.98 years. Average purchase amount, $80.77. Average review rating, 3.78 out of 5, right? So we've got our cluster descriptions there on the left. This is going to be our chat interface here in the middle. On the right, we have some quantitative metrics about these clusters. And on the left, we have some under that, we have some top categorical metrics about those clusters, so we can get some information about them. And there are some simple graphical abilities here down here. So as Brad discussed, the way we've exposed the data to the LLM is meant to reduce hallucinations, which we all know can be a big problem. So let's just start asking Audience Match some questions about our data and make sure it lines up. So I'm just going to ask it.
One take home there is that the less data that you feed the LLM, two things happen. One is hallucinations become less likely because you're not just overloading it, potentially getting outside the context window, et cetera. And number two, it becomes really easy to spot check. So Morgan was just running through some statistics for one of the segments. It's really easy just to cross-check between what the LLM is saying and the tabular outputs on the side that, yes, this, the average age really is 58.9, et cetera, et cetera.
And that's what we're doing here. So I just asked about the average purchase amount of those young budget-conscious regulars, and it's telling us it's 39.43. We can see that's what it provided us in the segment description here on the left, and we can also see 39.43 here in our quantitative overview. Okay, great. Let's ask it something. Let's ask it to summarize more concisely the difference between these segments.
So what you've seen so far is already probably a few weeks worth of work if you're doing this manually, getting the clustering right, getting all the dimensionality reduction and pre-processing correct. But again, we have an AutoML solution that covers that. And then just identifying the personas, even if they're not exactly what you would call the personas, getting something on paper as far as a springboard to analyzing these and activating on them is extremely important. That can take days of deliberation. Typically, everybody sits in a room and looks at a heat map and tries to discern which audience segments actually correspond with which personas. A lot of times marketing organization will have psychographic profiles that they want to map onto more data-driven segmentation. Those can also be fed in here as well, and the Gen AI can actually associate a psychographic persona with the descriptive statistics based on transactional, digital behavior, all that.
Absolutely. So I just ask it to summarize in a concise way our I want you to summarize these segments in a concise way that I can send to my executive leadership team. And it looks like I've done that. So instead of running through all of this information, right, we've got one bullet for each segment here. I could ask it to be even more concise. A lot of the outputs can be pretty thorough and also pretty dense. So today we won't read through everyone just for the sake of time here. Okay, let's ask it some more questions about our data.
You said for the sake of time, and one other thing that you can think of coming out of this is all kinds of strategic insights. So building campaign brief decks, things like that, strategy decks, that takes up a tremendous amount of time. Being able to have the context not only of these data behind the segments, but also, of course, you can think of using a RAG to feed in other relevant information. Having all of that piped out, that can save hours and hours of work. Obviously not replacing the marketer, just augmenting the marketer, taking a lot of that tedious work off their hands. That's really where GenAI is shining today.
Absolutely. So we're just asking it, what can we learn about the differences in purchase frequencies and amounts across these segments? And it's going to provide us some information on that there. So let's take a look at one of these answers. So young budget conscious regulars, these customers have the highest purchase frequency every 3 months, but the second lowest average purchase amount at $39. Whereas the young high spenders with the least frequent purchases annually, these customers have a similar spending amount per transaction as the affluent mid-agers. And then you have your mature periodic shoppers, similar to cluster 2, these customers buy annually. However, they have the lowest spend per transaction at $38.97. Great. So let's start talking about strategizing and potentially activating on these segments. We'll ask it about an organization-wide initiative we have to increase foot traffic in our stores.
Something really interesting about the traditional ML approach here too. We've done this project in sort of a manual form dozens of times for our clients over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's a really flexible approach. I think for marketing, people kind of associate propensity models, things like that, with marketing typically, but an unsupervised approach gives you reusable audiences. They're not just one sort of one-shot audience for a specific initiative. And what we've found repeatedly, and there's no real rigorous basis for this, I don't have proof of this, but it's just kind of anecdata, is that if you generate 5 to 10 segments, multiple of those segments tend to map onto business initiatives, even ones that we haven't technically targeted with a specific project. So very reusable, very durable outputs from an unsupervised approach to audience segmentation.
I agree. Okay, cool. So we've just asked it about our organization-wide initiative to increase foot traffic, and we've asked it which clusters might be most receptive to that. It looks like it's given us 2 clusters, and I've asked it to tell us why they might be most receptive. So it says, given the goal to increase foot traffic in stores, we should target the clusters that shop more frequently and could benefit from more tactile in-store shopping experiences. So the young budget conscious regulars, they shop every 3 months. Frequent interaction might encourage them to switch to in-store purchases, especially if special in-store promotions or experiences are offered. And the affluent mid-agers, although they shop quarterly, their higher average spend per transaction shows that they tend to invest in their purchases. Enhancing their shopping experience through in-store assistance, events, or information sessions about your products might incentivize them to visit stores. In general, these 2 clusters present the best opportunities for driving foot traffic due to their higher frequency of purchases. Great. Okay, so now we might be able to start building out a marketing campaign around this. Let's focus on the young budget conscious regulars.
And these are fairly realistic outputs. We've in our experimentation with this occasionally come across outputs, never anything that was like really wild, but things that are maybe not super interesting or seem fairly trivial, but it still allows you to drill down. And again, just getting kind of just over that first hurdle of getting some ideas on the page that you can then iterate on and optimize and move in a more creative direction can be super helpful and super beneficial in our experience for marketing teams and organizations.
Okay, now I'm starting to strategize with Audience Match, and I've asked it if it could help me provide some marketing copy that might resonate with those customers. So let's see what it gives us. Okay, it looks like this is quite a long answer this time. So stay on trend without breaking the bank. With our latest in-season hoodies, embrace your unique style at a price that's right. Shop more, save more at our store. Visit every 3 months. So it's interesting. When I've worked with this, oftentimes I've gotten shorter, snappier kind of answers. And this is actually a really good use case for the demo here because I might want some of those answers for my boss. So let's ask it to provide me a few more.
It's actually something on the near-term roadmap is we're going to start building in performance data as well. And what that'll allow us to do is say, like, this email campaign click-through rates are down, 5% for this segment. Why is that? And in our experimentation, that kind of analysis has come back very, very strongly through the Gen AI, basically saying, these are seasonal shoppers, or these are shoppers that like hoodies, and you were messaging the wrong thing at the wrong time. And that's a huge time saver. We have one client that's actively interested in that today because they spend so much of their time chasing down numbers. They'll get questions from leadership about why did this email campaign not perform well? Why is this group of customers not transacting as rapidly as we would like, et cetera. It's just a huge time saver and it takes a lot of that tedious manual effort off of humans' plates so they can go do the creative stuff to have a tool like this to just run those analyses.
Absolutely. So cool. We're iterating with Audience Match here. It looks like Audience Match gave us a few more marketing copies to work with, and they're kind of snappier. So style reloaded every season, your budget, your style, why wait, amazing deals every 3 months, save without sacrifice, style, quality, and affordability. So cool. Now we have something to work with. I'm going to ask it about creative imagery. How are we doing on time?
Good.
Okay, great. So let's just see if Audience Match can tell us about some creative imagery that might resonate with this segment as well.
I'm really excited at some point to start these newer models that do reasoning chains and can explain their reasoning very clearly. It'll be interesting to build that in the near future as well. You can kind of imagine seeing the thought process behind this and being able to either use that to validate what's coming out or say, no, I don't think that's quite right. Let's tweak the outputs a little bit.
Exactly. The other cool piece that we're looking at building in is a multimodal functionality. So instead of telling us about creative imagery, it would be able to provide us that directly, right? That would be really cool. So it looks like for the young budget conscious regulars, maybe a casual and laid back images of young men wearing hoodies in a casual, relaxed setting, reflecting the comfort and versatility of their preferred clothing item. Great. And we've got a few more of those that we can work with and iterate on and bounce ideas off of. Okay, cool. Let's do one last thing. Let's think about like some marketing diagnostics. Those young budget conscious regulars, they're about 31 years old, right? They're mainly males. They like hoodies. They live in Montana. Okay. I'm going to kind of try and trick Audience Match here.
You can see how this would be helpful for a marketing organization, right? Because they may not, again, have the technical skills to set something like this up. But of course, consultants are expensive, contractors are expensive, analysts are expensive. So this is something that they can basically iterate with and communicate with fairly cost effectively, get really good insights out, and just accelerate a lot of their activities. So just it's an efficiency tool, really. We like to think of it as sort of a UI for your data. It's a new type of user interface more than anything. It's a way for you to interact with your data through human language instead of SQL or any other programming or visualization tool that you might use.
It really opens things up for a lot more end users to interact with this kind of data.
Yeah.
So I told Audience Match that we ran a marketing campaign targeted at those young budget conscious regulars, and we focused on our new sundress line, but the campaign performed poorly, and I'm asking Audience Match to help me determine why. So it looks like we have a product mismatch. The young budget conscious regulars are identified as frequent purchasers of the product hoodie. Offering a sundress as the main product in a campaign may not resonate well with them as it doesn't align with their usual purchasing preferences. So I tried to trick it a little bit, right? My aggregated data is telling me they like hoodies. I told it we ran a campaign for sundresses, and I got a good answer back there. So you can really play around, you can really iterate, you can ask questions. It's a really fun tool. So we could do more.
I think we're about at time here, but I do want to ask you, you're the marketing analytics expert. So like 2 things on the hot seat here. one, how realistic are these answers? Is this something that you feel like would come out of a marketing strategy meeting? And two, how much time has this saved you? What would this exercise typically take in real time if you're doing all these things manually?
Yeah, I think these answers are totally realistic. I think this kind of brainstorming and iteration is something that we do a lot with our clients. And then from a time save standpoint, this is huge because this kind of strategizing is actually the really hard part, right? When you get, you can look at this data in a table, but to kind of get a concise description of and profile of what these audiences are and what they like, that we can work all the way up the executive leadership chain. That's something that really takes us time, right? And this tool has done it very well for us.
Cool. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you, everyone.
So I guess just take homes from a Gen AI perspective, working with limited data sets allows you to cross-check and validate and mitigate hallucinations, which is extremely important for building faith. As soon as a tool has been known to fail or provide false information, you kind of lose organizational buy-in for that tool going forward. We've seen that with other types of tools in the past, not just Gen AI. And kind of focusing on specific niches instead of broad, overarching analytics use cases, we've also found to be much more powerful and useful because of the ways that we're starting to tune and bolt things onto LLMs, RAGs, for example, are very well suited for targeting specific use cases with Gen AI. And viewing it as a time saver. It's not replacing anybody. These are just helping, in our case, again, marketers, but in your case, you probably have other use cases. Just save time, do stuff very quickly that they didn't really want to do in the first place, and move on to things that they're better at, that humans are still better at, and find more enjoyable. So thank you all so much for coming. Again, we are SoftCrylic. We really enjoyed speaking with you today. We're at booth 19 if you want to drop by. We'll also be out back if you have any questions. It's been a fantastic conference so far. We want to thank the DSC folks for having us and thank all of you for your time.